20% of construction businesses go out of business within their first year. 50% go out of business within 5 years. By 10 years, only about 30 to 35% are still in operation. But most construction businesses don't fail. They just get stuck. They get stuck at the same size. They get stuck with the same stress. They get stuck with the same margins year after year. And what's interesting is from the outside, these businesses usually look successful. They're busy. They've got a strong reputation. Their projects look great. Their schedule is full. But behind the scenes, the owner is exhausted. Every decision runs through them. Every problem lands on their desk. They can't take a real vacation. They can't step away without everything slowing down or breaking. I've met so many builders who are doing $2 or $3 million a year in revenue, booked out for months, great reputation, and they're more stressed than when they started. Not because the business isn't working, but because it literally cannot function without them. At that point, you're not really running a business anymore. You're just maintaining a very expensive job. This show is about the difference between running a construction company and building a construction business. Welcome to Brickonomics, the business of building. My name is Nick Scroggs. I run a residential design build construction company based in Asheville, North Carolina, and my background is a little unusual for the industry. I have both an MBA in finance and a master's degree in construction management. I've always lived in this middle space between job sites and spreadsheets. I got into construction because I loved the tangible nature of it. You build something real. You solve real problems. You see progress every day. But what surprised me quickly was that the hardest problems weren't physical. They were organizational. They were financial. They were leadership problems. They were systems problems. One of the first big realizations I had as an owner was when I couldn't confidently tell you which of our jobs were actually making money until months after they were done. We were busy, we were growing, we had cash moving in and out, but we were flying blind. And that's a terrifying place to be. You can work incredibly hard inside of a system that is quietly working against you. Brickonomics exists because I think the business of building is dramatically undertaught. Not in theory, not in abstract, but in practical, operator-level thinking. Brickonomics is about the systems behind the craft. Not how to frame a wall, not how to pour a slab, not how to install cabinets, but how to build the invisible architecture of a company. Things like, how do you design financial systems that actually tell you the truth? How do you structure contracts that protect both you and the client? How do you price work in a way that creates real margin instead of hope? How do you hire without chaos? How do you delegate without losing quality? How do you build leadership layers? How do you create culture on purpose instead of by accident? When most people talk about scaling, they only talk about revenue. I'm much more interested in whether the business becomes more stable as it grows or more fragile, because those are two very different outcomes. Here's the patterns that I see constantly, and tell me if this sounds familiar. A builder starts small. They're good at what they do. They build a reputation, work increases. And instead of the business becoming more stable, it becomes more stressful. Pricing is based on gut instead of data. Cash flow is reactive instead of planned. Hiring is informal instead of structured. Job profitability is unclear until long after the fact. The owner becomes the estimator, the project manager, the salesperson, the HR department, the accountant, and the problem solver. Everything runs through them. And eventually, growth doesn't feel like progress anymore. It feels like weight. I've seen companies lose money for an entire year without realizing it because they had no real job costing systems. Revenue looked strong, cash was moving, but the margins were gone. The problem wasn't effort. The problem was that the system had no feedback loop. Most builders don't have effort problems. They have systems problems. They're working incredibly hard inside of a structure that doesn't support the life that they want. This is my fundamental philosophy. Great local businesses consistently outperform fragile national ones. Quality doesn't scale through heroics. It scales through systems. Growth should reduce stress, not increase it. And the real goal of a construction business isn't just revenue. It's stability, profitability, longevity, and stewardship. A business that supports your life, not one that consumes it. I care a lot more about how predictable your cash flow is, how well your team is supported, how clearly your roles are defined, and whether your company could survive without you for a month than how fast you're growing. Because a sustainable business outlives their founders. Chaotic ones don't. This podcast is going to focus on the real levers that change outcomes. Things like how to think about pricing and margins, why your contract structure matters more than your marketing, how to build leadership layers, when to hire admin and operations roles, how to read financial dashboards, how to build a sales pipeline that isn't personality driven, how culture and accountability actually work in practice, how to design a company that doesn't collapse every time you step away. Not theory, not guru content, not hype, just real world operator thinking. This show is for small to mid-sized builders, people who care about quality and craftsmanship and want to create a real customer-oriented service business. Owners who want to build something that lasts decades, not quarters. People who want strong teams, strong margins, and a sane life. It's not for flippers, hustle culture, or anyone trying to build a business purely to sell it. This is about building something beautiful, stable, and worth passing on. My long-term goal is simple. I want more great regional construction companies. Companies that treat their teams well, serve their communities, operate profitably, and outlive their founders. Brickonomics is meant to become a library of systems and thinking that any serious builder could use to strengthen their business. Not to scale recklessly, but to scale intelligently. If you're a builder who feels stuck or overwhelmed, or just curious about what the next level actually looks like, you're in the right place. This show is about building better businesses behind the craft. Thanks for being here, and welcome to Brickonomics.